Everybody, I want to welcome you to the Mayor's Commission for Citizens with Disabilities for the City of Omaha. My name is Mark Smith. I work at the Monroe-Meyer Institute. I'm also the parent and sibling to individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. I want to welcome our television audience, any other guests, our interpreter. Now, as far as I know, this will be rebroadcast at 7 p.m. each Tuesday on Channel 18, but I would strongly encourage you to take a look on the Disability Commission's website at www.cityofomaha.org. Click on the Mayor's Office, click on the Disabilities Commission, and each of our meetings and presentations have a YouTube video. I want to remind everybody of the members and audience of the Mayor's Commission purpose and meeting. Boy, it's been a while since I've done this, so I'm catching up. The Commission's role is to promote quality of life and accessibility and equity in all aspects related to the City of Omaha on behalf of and in cooperation with the citizens of the city who experience disabilities. To this end, the Commission will advise the Mayor, City Council, city departments, and other personnel on issues of access, representation, employment, housing, quality of life, and other issues affecting city citizens with disabilities and their respective families. We attempt to serve as a resource for Omaha citizens with disabilities and their families in terms of their concerns and assisting them in finding resolutions regarding issues that affect them. We attempt to publicize to the citizens of the city the role of the Mayor's Commission and the resources available to assist citizens with disabilities, employers, housing representatives, business owners, engineers, architects, and others who have a role in bettering the life of our citizens with disabilities. We work to promote awareness to the general public on the capabilities, needs, and desires of citizens with disabilities. When we publicly recognize the efforts of employers, business, schools, organizations, and others who've demonstrated outstanding support of programs and services for our disabled citizens. We serve as advocates for accessibility issues and implement plans and projects to improve services for citizens with disabilities. This is hard to say. And finally, we review and implement plans and projects that advocate for services for citizens with disabilities. That's a little bit about us. At this time, I want to go ahead and have each of our members introduce themselves and who they represent. Again, my name is Mark Smith. I work at University of Nebraska Medical Center, Monroe-Meyer Institute, and I'm here representing individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities.
I'm Laura Young, and I am the director of the League of Human Dignity here in Omaha.
Hi, I'm Lisa Sherman. I'm the pastor at Faith Christian Church here in Omaha. I also serve on the State of Nebraska Emergency Advisory Council. My husband and I have adopted 5 special needs children, and today I'm here to represent my son Gabriel, who has cerebral palsy and is nonverbal.
My name's Eric Olson, and I'm here just representing the average citizen with a disability.
My name's Stephanie Scavdahl, and I work for Outlook Nebraska, and I'm here representing the blind and visually impaired community.
My name is Megan Walls. My company is Assistology, working in inclusion and accessibility throughout our community, and I'm here representing all disability groups.
My name is Rachel Johnson. I work at QLI with individuals with traumatic brain injuries and spinal cord injuries. I also do have a spinal cord injury, so I'm here to represent the needs of those populations.
Okay, thanks to all. I'd remind you to have a pen and paper handy for the end if you're watching on TV. As if time is available, we'll have our members talk about any announcements that they might have in terms of upcoming events, activities, or functions. We did have a quorum. We did approve the minutes from our planning meeting in January, which I felt was really nicely done discussion on planning for the coming year. So we got quite a bit of work done, and we are in the midst of planning to implement some of the activities that we designated for the year, not only in terms of presenters, but also the public footprint of the commission, to look at the opportunity possibly to meet with the mayor and other city officials as relates the issues and concerns of the commission. Let's see. Okay. Now we're coming to you. I promised our presenter that I would let her know when we were coming her way. Our presentation today, and to preface this a little bit, one of the things we looked at doing in the meeting in February and then this coming March is to look at community inclusion from an access but also a recreation standpoint. How do people with disabilities in Omaha get out in their communities and recreate and enjoy everything our city has to offer? So our first presenter in this series is Nancy Berg, who is a community accessibility advocate. I'm guessing that's not all you've ever done, but I'll allow you to go into that. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Nancy, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
I will say, sorry, gosh, I always do this. We might have a few questions at the end.
Okay.
So, just to let you know.
Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Nancy Berg, and I am the content creator for an Instagram account called Accessible402. Before I begin, I just want to thank Megan for reaching out and inviting me to come speak to all of you today. She was one of the first followers that I had through Assistology and Imagine Inclusion Inc. that were followers of mine that were not a friend or family member. So I didn't have to bribe her to follow me on Instagram. So I just want to say thank you for that. So today I'm going to start out by telling you a little bit about my backstory. I will talk about my accident, my short time at rehabilitation, and my life with a spinal cord injury. And then I will go over Accessible 402. So I will go over how I came up with the idea, when this account got started, and then how I decide what I'm going to post each week. Then I'll open it up for any questions that you may have. So I have been a wheelchair user for almost 25 years. During the summer of '95, I was a very active teenager. I was really involved in my church, so I went on a mission trip to Mexico. I was a camp counselor. I was involved with Vacation Bible School, so I really was never home that summer. So on my last day of becoming a camp counselor, I decided that I wanted to go out with my friends. At the time, I had my driver's license, but I did not have a car. And so a friend from the neighborhood, she came and picked me up, and we met a group of girls at the movie theater to see the movie Clueless. So I'm totally dating myself there. So after the movie was done, we went over to a friend's house, and all of my friends, they were going to go to a party. And I was supposed to go home, but I decided to call my parents' house. And I called several times, and it just rang and rang and rang. So I made this decision that I'm going to go out to this party too. No one's home. They're not going to miss me. I'm just going to go out. So 3 of us went into my friend's car, and I was sitting in the back seat. At the time when you sat in the back seat, you had a lap belt. So there wasn't a seat belt that strapped over your chest. So it's just a lap belt. And I sat in the back seat so that I could talk to the passenger and the driver in the front. And we were driving along, and we were going east on Center Street, and then we took a left on 90th, and we stopped at the first set of lights. And it was a really hot summer day. All of the windows in the car were down, and the driver decided that she was going to take her hair out of her scrunchie and let it like go long. So the lights turn green, and she starts driving, and all of her hair blows into her face. And she's like, okay, that was a bad idea. I'm going to get the scrunchie that I dropped on the floor and put it back in my hair. But she couldn't find the scrunchie, so she's driving, and she has the passenger take the wheel while she's like looking on the floor for her scrunchie. And I'm getting really nervous at that time, so I have a scrunchie on my wrist, and I hurry up and I handed it to her. And by that time, we had lost control of the vehicle. We swerved past a mailbox, and we straight on hit a tree in someone's yard. So since we were in someone's yard, the people came out and they said, we obviously see this accident in front of our yard. We have called 911, and an ambulance is on its way. So we were all transported to the med center, and my time at the hospital was a big blur. I had major surgeries done, one because I had broken my spinal cord, I severed my nerves, and I stretched my spinal cord due to that lap belt, and I also ruptured my large and small intestine. So I had surgery done on my back, and then I also had a temporary ostomy bag put on my stomach. So after 2 or 3 weeks of me being at UNMC, then I went to rehab. At the time, my parents had the choice of going to Emmanuel or going to Methodist. And most of the time when you have a spinal cord injury, between those two choices, you're gonna go to Emmanuel. But my parents decided that they were gonna send me to Methodist. One, because it was really close to our house, and it was just convenient for my friends to come and visit me after school, since I had gone to Westside High School at that time. And I was really excited about going to rehab because I was just ready to get my life back. I thought that I was going to go to rehab. They were going to teach me how to walk again, and like life was going to be good. So I really honestly didn't know what a spinal cord entailed, and I don't even remember anybody ever telling me that I wasn't going to walk again. So the first day that I'm rolled into rehab, all of the wheelchairs are lined next to each other, and I look down the row, and everybody that is sitting next to me is 70 plus years old, and I'm 16 years old. Like, what is going on? Everybody there was my grandparents' age, and they were all there because they suffered a stroke. So there was really no one there with a spinal cord injury, so I didn't have anyone that I could really relate to. So right off the bat, I didn't have really support from the spinal cord community because I didn't know anybody. So during my 8 weeks of rehab, I learned how to do things that I was taking for granted prior. I had to learn how to sit again. I had to learn how to use my wheelchair. I had to learn everyday things like how to get out of bed, how to get dressed, how to go to the bathroom, how to transfer, how to open doors, you know, things that I needed to learn in order to be independent enough to be released from the hospital. So once I was independent enough, I continued outpatient rehab for the next 5 months. And I just want to say that living at the hospital versus being out in the real world is a totally different story. So when I was living at the hospital, your bathroom is accessible. The doors automatically open for you. The hallways are wide. My bedroom bed, the door moved, or not the door, the bed moved up and down for me. So it's like everything was nice and cushy for me. And then I was released, and then you learn about all things that are inaccessible. So every day since my accident, I've had to become a planner, a problem solver. I've had to practice patience, and I've had to adapt to a world that can be very frustrating at times. So, despite my car accident, I would say that I've had a pretty good life. So, I don't see myself as being an inspiration. I see myself as someone that had two choices. So, I either feel sorry for myself and dwell on what could have been, or I move forward and be thankful for this second chance at life. So, since my accident, I graduated from high school with my class, and then I went on to go to UNO, and I majored in management information systems. I learned how to be independent by driving with hand controls. I got a job in information technology. I got married. I raised my husband's son since he was 1. He's almost 21 now. And then I got pregnant when I was 30 with my daughter Mackenzie, and she is now 10, almost 10. So life was going great. And then during the summer of 2018, my health started to slowly decline. So during the summer of 2018, I got a pressure wound. So from the summer of 2018 to the fall of 2018, I was dealing with a pressure wound that I got due to a bad cushion, and I was going to the wound clinic every week, and things seemed to be moving up. And then one day I came home after bringing my daughter to turkey bingo, and I was running a horrible fever, and I was thinking, oh, I probably got the flu because I was just around like 300 kids, so I thought I was sick. So that weekend, it was the weekend before Thanksgiving, and I was just feeling really crummy. But one of the days I was feeling better, so I decided to eat dinner with my family, and I got up and I sat in front of a space heater for a couple of minutes. I ended up getting a 2nd-degree burn on my leg. So it was like all these things were going on, and I just felt so sick. And my doctor told me on Monday to go to the wound clinic, so I did that, and I just felt like I was dying. And when I got to the wound clinic, they go, you're going to the emergency room now. And I got admitted to the hospital because I ended up with staph infection. So that was probably the first big health scare since my spinal cord injury. And so when I was released from the hospital, I took a leave from work, and I spent 5 months to heal. And during that time, I was on the internet a lot. And one day I decided that I was going to Google wheelchair accessible activities in Omaha. And not a whole lot of options appeared. And of course, you're going to get places like the Henry Dorley Zoo, because Omaha is known for the Henry Dorley Zoo. And I got like Lauritzen Gardens and some museums and a whole lot of restaurants, which I guess wheelchair users love to eat. So I was just thinking that I felt like Omaha had so much more to offer. So since I've lived in Omaha all of my life, I just started to write down a list of places that I frequently went. So places that I knew that I could go independently. They had ample parking, they have an entrance that I can get into, and they have an accessible bathroom. And you would think that at the time it was like 2018, 2019, you would think that this would be a given when you go to businesses, but unfortunately that's just not always the case. So I also decided that I was also going to start making a list of adaptive activities as well. So I decided that I was going to post these places on the internet once I started feeling healthy again. I felt that by putting accessible and adaptive activities on the web, that I would give others in my situation the courage and the confidence to get out of their house, try to go to these places, and see what activities were available to them. So, like I said earlier, when I got in my accident, there was really no one that I could relate to. I did meet a few people later on in life, like a couple of years after my accident, that were guys that were in wheelchairs. So, you know, if I had questions, I could ask them those types of things. But honestly, I didn't have that many friends in wheelchairs. In fact, when I met Rachel in November, she was the first female with a spinal cord injury that I had met, and I had been using a wheelchair for 24 years. So it's like everything that I was deciding to post were things that I knew about from real life experience. So I decided to use Instagram as the social media platform because that is the one that I use the most. I don't have Facebook, but eventually I'm going to move everything to Facebook as well. But I follow several users that are wheelchair users, so I felt like this was going to be a place that I could gain followers the easiest. So unfortunately, only a few of them lived in Omaha. So secondly, I had to come up with a name. So at first I came up with the name Accessible Omaha just because I was focusing on a lot of the places within Omaha, but instead I chose Accessible 402 because I thought that this would give me a bigger area that I could cover. So if I wanted to, I could pick places in Lincoln or Bellevue. So that's why I decided on Accessible 402. So I have a friend and she is a photographer, and I told her about my idea, and she said that that was a great idea, and she agreed that she was going to take some pictures of me. So we started, of course, at the Henry Dorley Zoo, and we also went to the Bob Carey Bridge. So I was extremely apprehensive when it came to putting myself out there because I don't like being the center of attention. I don't really talk about my life being in a wheelchair at all. And so I was kind of freaked out, but everybody was encouraging me to do this. So I decided that my first post was going to be on the anniversary of my car accident. So that was July 21st. So on the screen, you can see that this is the first post that I ever made to my account. So it just basically told a little bit about me and what I wanted Accessible 402 to end up becoming. So there are three main things that I post about. Mainly, I post about myself, accessible places, and adaptive activities. So with myself, I post a lot about daily struggles, and lately it seems like a lot of my issues happen to be with parking. Whoops. Yeah, and I can't get to the second picture, darn. So anyways, so a lot of issues that I have are with parking, and I have found that a lot of the places that I enjoy going are also not the most accessible places. I find that I like to go places that are kind of difficult. But one of the places is Blackstone, and I posted about Blackstone and how I can never find a parking place when I go there. So I ended up writing Blackstone District to find out where where the accessible parking is, and I found out that they actually only have 3 parking spots for, handicapped users. So there was like nothing, and I was totally surprised by this. So I did make a post about that. I post about my issue with not enough curb cuts. For example, this is a brand new sidewalk that was installed at my work, and I was super excited when the sidewalk was going to be put in because at the time, one of our entrances was under construction, and so I had to use the back entrance. And to get to my car, I had to wheel myself through the street because there weren't any curb cuts. So when they put this new sidewalk in, I asked facilities, why are there no curb cuts? I could totally use the sidewalk right now. And they said, well, once the main entrance has been built, there will be no need for you to ever use that sidewalk. So it's like these are the types of things that I deal with all the time. Another thing would be accessible entrances not being labeled correctly. So another example is there's a restaurant called Mula. And I remember parking in the back and going up the ramp to what I thought was going to be the door. And when I got to the door, it said, must use the front door. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to obey these rules. I go down the ramp. I go around the block, I go to the front, and there are 2 stairs there. And I'm supposed to be meeting friends inside, so I go to the coffee shop next door and I say, how do I get into this restaurant? I'm supposed to meet some people here. And they're like, oh, I'll walk you to it. And he walks me to the door that said, use the front door. So I notice a lot of times when I want to go someplace, sometimes the entrance isn't always labeled the way that it should. And then lastly, lately I posted about going to the grocery store, which is my least favorite thing. And this actually became a really popular post when I first posted about it. And I had so many people reaching out to me to give me ideas on how to make grocery shopping easier. So those are some of the things that I post about about myself. Other things I post about are accessible places. So when my daughter was really little, I was always trying to figure out where to bring her. So some of the places that I post about, again, are the Henry Dorley Zoo, just because we spend so much time there, but also like a movie theater, like AMC movie theater. When you go to the movies, a lot of times you just sit in the front row because stadium seating is like the new thing. But in order to sit up there, you need to go upstairs. So AMC Theater is close to my house, and they have 4 theaters that actually can be reached via an elevator. So I can either sit in the very front, or I have the option at that movie theater to sit up towards the back. And I like options, so I posted about AMC Theater and how you can find out which movie theater or which movies are playing in those theaters. I've posted a lot about free places like All Play Complex and Pipple Park, which are 2 of the parks that are accessible. When my daughter was little, I was invited to go to a play date so that she could go to a splash park, and I had never known about the All Play Complex at all. And at the time, she was about 5 years old, and I remember going to the playground and thinking, this is great. There are ramps up to like the equipment, and I don't have to sit on the sidelines anymore. and watch my daughter play. I can actually go up there and interact with her. So I post about these parks, and actually when I hashtagged about the parks, this is when I found out about Megan's park that she is helping plan with at Lake Zurinsky, which will be the first accessible park west of 72nd Street. So when I found out about this, I was really ecstatic and excited about it. What else? So I also post about a lot of adaptive activities. I didn't get involved in any adaptive type sports until I was in my mid-30s, and where I started was at the PVA. So here is a picture of my friend Travis at the PVA. A lot of times when you think of the PVA, you think that this is just a place for paralyzed vets, when actually you don't have to be a paralyzed vet to participate in a lot of their activities. So when I joined CrossFit when I was about 34, this is like the first time that I met a whole bunch of people that were wheelchair users. Again, I was the only girl at the time that was at this gym, but it was just nice to be around other people with a disability. I also do yoga, chair yoga at Simplicity, and this isn't me doing chair yoga, but it's doing a yin class at the same place. And again, this was the first place that I had gone that offered chair yoga, so I was excited about that. So I thought that would be a great place to post on my account so that other people would know about their chair yoga. And then here's another thing that I've posted. Like, I wrote a list of things that I was like wanted to try, and someone told me that at Standing Bear Lake I could use they had an accessible kayak. So in order to do this, I did have to get a doctor's note, and it was kind of a pain at first, but once I had the doctor's note, I was able to go multiple times, and it was relatively inexpensive to go. It was only like $10. So going kayaking, this was some newfound freedom for me that, I could go out with my friends, get on a kayak, and look like everybody else. So that was one of the like more fun posts that I have posted lately. So like in October, I got nominated to be a Project Community Champion on KETV for this Instagram account. And when I was on the news, that's when I ended up getting a ton of followers and also an anxiety attack, because I was like, what did I start? This was just for like a few people. And it ended up building like a small community, because now I have over 2,000 followers. I have a lot of people that are wheelchair users in Omaha. They're not necessarily spinal cord injuries, but like across the board, and they will contact me and tell me about things that I should post about or things that I should check out. And at first, when I created this account, it was really a resource for others, but it has slowly become a resource for myself as well. And it also has given me the opportunity to meet other people that use a wheelchair. So it's been kind of cool, since I feel like I've been by myself for a really long time. So there are a lot of things that I have tried that I didn't even know were possible. So one of the things, I know this isn't in Nebraska, but it's like right across the border in Council Bluffs, they have an accessible go-kart. And I just think that is super cool. And they even have a lift that will, if you can't transfer to the go-kart, you can get lifted into the car. And I just thought that was like super fun, even though my husband was like lapping me because I was too scared to go fast. Other things like the PVA, they have power soccer. This has just started. I don't use a power chair, but I was excited that they asked me to post about it because it gives my followers an opportunity to see other things that are in their community. So I have a lot of people that will reach out to me and they're like super excited about the things that I've posted, and I just feel like I'm like really helping people out. Okay, and then like the last thing, so again, when I first started this account, I was just taking into account things that were accessible to myself. So I drive a car and I don't drive a van, so I have a lot of followers that drive a van, so they would tell me about like their parking issues, like they may have a ramp on the side and how they can't find parking places sometimes, or how a place may say that it's an accessible entrance, whereas it's just a door. There's not a push button for the door to open automatically, or the stall may not be large enough for their power chair. So these things have been eye-opening to me, and so whenever someone tells me those types of things, I try to also include that in my post so that power users, they can also like see if they can go to this place as well. So what are things that businesses could do? One, label accessible entrances when they are not obvious. A big one for me is include accessibility information on their websites. This is something that is super easy to do, and a lot of places really don't do it. And I have found that if a business has their accessibility information on there, then that determines if I'm going to go to that place or not. So in January, I posted about axe throwing, and there's 3 axe throwing places in Omaha. So I went to all 3 websites, and only one of the sites even mentioned anything about wheelchair users being able to throw an axe. So of course, that's the place that I chose to go to first. But also, they posted that their ramp inside their business was not ADA compliant. And I don't know what I was thinking at that time, but it was kind of too late. So I had already made the appointment and invited all my friends to go, and we went axe throwing. And the ramp was accessible for me, but it wasn't accessible. I don't think it would be accessible for everyone just because it is narrow. But even by posting that something isn't accessible, I think that would be nice as well, because you're letting me know instead of me going to a place and having to try to figure out how I'm going to get into that business. Another thing is have more than one accessible parking spot, and also make sure that it is van accessible. There are so many places now that I've noticed they don't have a van accessible spot, or they say that it's accessible, but it's like very narrow, and I don't even think that it's like ADA compliant necessarily. I think that they just stuck a accessible like blue sign in front of the parking spot and called it good. And then lastly, try to make your business ADA compliant. My friend, she works at the Drover, and I have wanted to go to the Drover for years, but they had a bathroom in the basement. So I'm like, I'm not going to go to a restaurant where I have to go downstairs to use the bathroom. My husband, he could carry me if he wanted to, but that's not the point. I will go somewhere else. But I think it was like last year, the Drover had a fire, and so they redid their bathroom. Or actually, they didn't redo their bathroom. They added a bathroom upstairs. And I remember when I went and ate there, there were a lot of people that walked by thanking the manager for including an accessible bathroom upstairs. So it's like these people weren't necessarily wheelchair users, but, you know, they appreciated that they didn't have to go down 2 flights of stairs to even go to the bathroom at this restaurant. So what is the future of this account? One, I'm going to continue posting on Instagram. I have a long list of ideas. My posting kind of has slowed down now that it is winter, but once spring has arrived, I'll be posting quite often again. I plan to open the site up to Facebook since a lot of people have Facebook accounts instead of Instagram accounts. I'm going to keep the Instagram account, but since Instagram and Facebook are owned by the same, it's easy to post on both. And then I also bought Accessible 402, the domain. So I'm hoping that I have a website so that you don't need to have a Facebook or an Instagram account to see what's accessible in your community. I'm always up for suggestions and improvements to make this idea better. In fact, I had someone contact me last week that was visually impaired that told me I needed to add my alternative text to all my photos. And so I spent a week adding alternative text. I think I'm 2/3 done. So like I'm open to suggestions. Anything that could make this idea better is great. That's all I have.
Well, thank you, Nancy. That is, to say it's impressive is probably my understatement of the week, and it's only Monday. Questions for Nancy?
I do.
Yeah.
The businesses that you have run into a problem with, how have they responded to you in making your experience better?
Okay, so an example would be like at Mula when I had those issues. I honestly don't think that they have done anything. I complain a lot, and a lot of times I think it takes someone to complain persistently for them to make a change. So an example would be there's a new food court in Exarban, and they have a handicap like parking. They have like 5 stalls, and in the parking garage there is a label by the door that says handicap entrance, and there's no push button to get in the door. So I've had a lot of people actually reach out to me to message them. So it's like right now, I just feel like I have a bunch of people messaging businesses persistently so that they'll make a change. So the only big change that I can think of on the top of my head is on this one where it says parking wheelchair user only. And this was actually at my work. We have like a bunch of handicap parking places, and in the morning when I would get to work at like 8:45, most of them would be filled. And I complained to HR, and they told me that I just needed to come to work earlier. But a lot of these people were in call centers, and so they would be coming to work at like 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning. So all this parking was like full. So I would have to park really, really far away in a handicap parking spot. It was labeled handicap parking, but I don't think it was necessarily handicap parking. And my friend and I, we were both in wheelchairs. We just kept messaging HR. And finally, my friend quit because the parking was so ridiculous. And after he quit, I just kept being persistent. And they ended up changing all the lines in the parking lot so that they were ADA compliant. And they also put these wheelchair user only tags or parking places up, so there's like 3 of them. So when I get a park in them, I'm like really happy. I get a park in them probably 75% of the time. But I just feel like you have to be persistent, and if you see something that's not accessible, you need to tell the management what you think, because otherwise they're not gonna know. But I don't see like a whole lot of change all the time. And sometimes when I post about places and make a complaint, the business will respond and say that they're going to change, and I will go back to their website and check, and nothing really has been done.
You talked about a few kind of more fun activities, but like as you think back on like the last year or so since you've been posting, like what are 1 or 2 that really stand out, whether it was like, you know, a girls' night out or date night or like family activity that you really, you know, found around the area that maybe surprised you a little bit about how accessible it was that you were able to like go to and enjoy?
Well, one of them I messaged was go-karting. That was something I haven't done since I was probably like 14 years old. And there is a gentleman that's actually like a go-kart racer that went to QLI, and that's how I found out about it. So that was fun because that was something that my husband liked to do and something that I like to do. Like I found out that I like to do as well, and it was like good parking. It was just something different that I never thought that I would be able to do. And I already talked about that kayaking. That was just fun because that was something that I could go and do with my friends. I didn't need my husband to carry me into a kayak. So it was like once I was out on the water, it was like I felt free and like everybody else out there. And it was really inexpensive. The only thing that was kind of a pain was having to get the doctor's note, giving me permission to actually do something that I knew that I could do. But this is like another place. This is the Makery. My daughter loves doing arts and crafts, so we'll go to the Makery, and they have lots of low tables that I can like wheel up to, and their bathroom is so big. And that's always important to me. So that's just like a little fun place to go to. Oh, and there's Rachel.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, and this was really fun too. So I haven't started to do this yet, but Dive Ventures, they actually have a scuba diving program, and they are partnered with a nonprofit called Dive Pirates, and that's really exciting because they help you get your certification for almost free, I believe. I don't have my passport yet, but that's something that I have on my list because I would love to go scuba diving, and I talked my husband into doing this. So I don't know. That's something exciting that I never knew was available.
For being so open about your life and your journey and sharing that and inviting others in. As a mother who has a child that's in a wheelchair, Another thing, I have a friend, when you were talking about restrooms and having the stalls wide enough to use, I have a friend who has a 16-year-old daughter with cerebral palsy, and her complaint isn't only that the stall is not wide enough, but that the the doors don't go all the way down. She said you don't want to put your 16-year-old daughter on a baby changing table, but privacy
Yeah.
is part of human dignity. And so I do know that public restrooms need to be, not only do they need to be wide enough, but to also offer some stalls where the doors go all the way down, so that for individuals and care providers can maintain human dignity of their loved
I
one.
understand what you're saying now. A lot of times I may not have an issue with the stall being wide enough, but I also have issues with it being deep enough. So I could wheel in, but the door behind me can't close. And there have been times where I have to have my daughter take the wheelchair out and stand behind the door after I transfer to the toilet so that I can go to the bathroom without everybody walking by and looking at me. So, like with me, bathrooms is a big problem. Like I could tell you every place that I've gone to that doesn't have an accessible bathroom, because if their bathroom isn't accessible, I probably won't go there again.
Other questions?
Do you mind if I ask you what
ahead,
level
Eric.
of injury you have?
I'm at L3, L4, so I have a pretty low spinal cord injury. I said that I had an incomplete injury, so I do have movement of my legs. Like I can cross my right leg, but I don't have feeling on my feet or movement on my feet. When I was in rehab, they gave me long leg braces to walk with. So I could walk sort of with a walker, but it wasn't ideal if I needed to get to places quickly.
Right.
Yeah.
I also did my rehab at Methodist
Yeah.
in '92.
Yep. Cool. We could have been at the same place
Well,
in '95.
I was their first spinal cord injury when they started the rehab program.
Oh, wow.
So, did you happen to have Trisha Wesley as your OT?
Think maybe. No, I don't think
No?
so. I was thinking PT. My PT was Mitch Moody.
Mitch Moody, yep.
Yep.
He's at the university now.
And I'm not really dogging on Methodist, because I did learn a lot from going to rehab there. It's just a lot of times when you go to like a manual or QLI, there are like so many people, like so many more people with
The spinal cord injury.
Yeah, an injury similar to like something that I would have had.
Right. I'm with you.
Has anyone else heard of the proposal that is a proposal for new legislation that basically there will be a formalized process of complaining if there is an ADA violation by a business, private business? And so basically, like, you write the business owner a formal letter, you give them a certain amount of time to make the change, and then I think you have to write like another letter if it still hasn't happened. And then if they're still in violation after a certain period of like months, then they are liable to be fined at that point. I was just wondering if anyone was knowledgeable.
I didn't know where it was in the process, but essentially, Nebraska is one of the states that doesn't have a requirement for you to give businesses a notice before filing a lawsuit for an ADA claim, and it's caused a whole bunch of issues that we don't need to get into today. But so they're trying to formalize that process, both to protect the businesses on some aspect, but formalize the process so that individuals in the community know how they can
Right, that makes sense. Because people could just suddenly file a lawsuit when a business owner didn't know
Yeah.
that they were even in violation. So I think it's great that you made the point of, you know, trying to speak to the management directly so that at least they'll know. Because a lot of times they don't even know what ADA accessibility means or should look like.
To kind of piggyback on that, a question I have, like talking about the bathroom stalls, how they're not deep enough and stuff. Do I'm under the assumption they meet ADA requirements?
A lot of times I think that these places are at older businesses, so I believe they're grandfathered in because they came before the ADA laws, right?
Yeah, it's not black and white. It's, you know, when they were built, when they were renovated, and spaces might measure in some ways, and then someone puts a trash can in the way, and, you know, so there's no one answer.
My point was just that maybe the ADA regulations need updated.
No, they do.
Oh yeah, they do.
Because businesses could be compliant, but still, it's not meeting the need, or it's just meeting the barest.
Correct.
Yeah, and a lot of times I think when I call a business out on my Instagram, I think they get freaked out and defensive because they don't realize what they have done. And I don't really feel like it's my job to tell them that they're not ADA compliant. I mainly want my account to show people that use wheelchairs what they can do instead of what they cannot. So I mainly focus on that aspect. Like I do post like different things to show people like what I have issues with, but for the most part, I like to post things that people can do.
Okay, one more question. Have you heard of the accessible adaptive rock climbing
Yes.
at, oh my gosh, I just forgot what it's called. I went there and I did it. It's the climbing gym here in Omaha.
Yeah, approach.
Approach climbing, yeah.
And they're actually on my list, but like in September, I hurt my elbow walking my dog. He like pulled my arm, and so I haven't done it, but that is actually something I plan on doing this spring.
Sweet.
Yep.
Cool.
Okay, Nancy, thank you. That was outstanding. I just want to say thank you because
Thank you.
I didn't hear you say anything about like you've made your first million or anything like that doing this. That you were.
And I'm not getting paid for my account, so I'm just doing it as something to do for fun. So.
Well, but the chance of making it better for the next person and paying it forward, I mean, it had to start somewhere. So
Yep.
really, I just want to say thanks on part of the group. I think we're just about out of time, so I'm going to call us for this month. Next month, we'll have another presenter talking about community inclusion and recreation. I think she has a high bar, or whoever presents will have a high bar to follow Nancy, but thank you again, and I'll call us adjourned for this month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.